Tiago Costa is a cloud architect and advisor and international speaker on Microsoft Azure. For the past years, he has been architecting and developing solutions using Microsoft Azure for some of the Fortune 500 companies. Due to his strong real-world experience, Tiago regularly takes Microsoft Azure classes around the world. Microsoft Azure MVP since 2016 for his community efforts in promoting and sharing knowledge with the community. Tiago has 50 plus Microsoft certifications, including MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer, and got awarded as MCT Regional Lead since 2016 every year. He is the founder of the Azure Portugal User Group. He loves diving into new technologies and to share his experience at conferences and training classes. But what excites him about his work is to help others exploring new frontiers in technology impacting their lives, making the world a better place for everyone. So, attendees, as a reminder to all of you, this conference is being recorded. We will have Q&A at the end of presentation. Please use the Q&A tool if you have a question for the speaker. The stage is all yours, Tiago. You can now share your content and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this very kind presentation. So let me just share my screen here, and I think it should be this one. I'm so sorry because I have a few screens here on my side, so I'm always trying to figure it out which is the one that I'm sharing. So I think we can you guys can see my basically my presentation. So I'll just like to welcome everyone. It's a big pleasure to be here today, and a true honor to be invited, okay, to speak among such bright minds as I've been watching the whole conference, which is really rare to be able to be here and engaging in a full day conference, but it has been really engaging. So let's get started. So my session is about, I find your lack of training disturbing. And the idea is, this is really true, because I really find it disturbing when we still see companies that we talk about training with them and they just say, why should we train our staff? Okay, because we don't want to train them. They don't need, or we are just too busy, or a very bad answer that, incredibly, I got this from very large companies, to be honest, usually more on departmental way. But what about if we train them, they get amazingly good and they leave? Okay, and this is a question that some people do. Well, my answer for that is, what if they stay? Because I think everyone already understands this, but if you don't train your people, okay, there is a huge cost. And the cost is to have untrained staff that takes ages to do a task. They are not going to provide a good customer experience. And this is not just in IT, is in every single thing. For example, I'll just tell you my personal experience. The other day, I went to a dealership because my car had an issue, and I just had to go there. Because of COVID, they have a person in front of the installations, so before you even are able to drive there, and that person should not speak with the public, because that person doesn't have any experience in speaking with other persons. And I didn't like the way that I was treated. You know what I did? Just drove away. There's another repair shop across the corner, and I just went to the other part, and amazingly well. I basically did a formal complaint about it, and they said, we didn't have time to train him. And I was like, and you put it in speaking with people, and he doesn't know what he's doing. You just lost the customer for a long time, at least. And this is just me, just a small example. So there is a true cost of you not training your staff. And that, for me, is a really concern, especially in big companies. Because, look, we can start to talk about retaining employees. Because that's also another important part, is that me as an employee, I already left the company where I previously worked, because my company was not providing me training. And me working in the IT industry, I was like, I will just be transforming into a dinosaur, Like, I don't want to stay here because in 2, 3 years, my skills will be outdated. No one will give me a job. Just I'll be in this company like forever. And if the company has an issue, I will not be able, to move to another company. It will be really hard. So I just left, and like me, thousands, maybe millions of other people do the same. They leave their companies because of the lack of training. This leads to unappreciated employees. They don't feel that that job is important. They don't feel comfortable. They leave on their own, or worst even is they get fired. Okay, and this is not rare. I already saw people getting fired because they are not performing well, but they were put in positions and doing tasks which they were not trained to. Of course, you're going not to perform, because it's the same thing. If you put me, I know, to build space rockets, I will be fired immediately because I don't know anything about that. I need to get trained first, so that then, yeah, I can then go there and perform. Then some stats, because look, I'm from IT. I love numbers. I'm an engineer, so I had to bring numbers to this presentation. This is based in some studies that says that replacing an employee costs around 30% of a yearly salary. So let's just give an example of a 50K salary. Replacing that employee because he left because of something, it will cost you around 50K. 15K is a lot of money. How much training do you feel that is going to cost? I'm sure if you just train that person every year, it's going to cost you way less, and you get a more stable workforce, which, as we all know, it is something that, yes, we want to achieve. We don't want to achieve, a very static workforce. We always like to bring new people over. We know that some people will leave, sure, but there is that, and there is one thing, which is people leaving because they are just not appreciated. They don't feel appreciated. And training has a huge role on this. This year is a study that was from PricewaterhouseCoopers that says that this was made to millennials, but I feel that we can get very, very similar numbers for other age groups. That what it tells here is that there is an actual correlation between what is an employee that is happy to be there in that company, feels appreciated, feels engaged with the company, and training. And if you see there, like we're talking about excellent training and development programs. And I know this is quite small, but we can maybe try to zoom in. So I'm talking about this one here, the one that's in red. And look, this is like 35% of people that answered this. They said that's like a third, roughly, of the workforce that says that this for them it is quite important. And of course, yes, we have other things that are first, like opportunities for progression. I think that's quite an obvious one, and competitive wages. Okay, for sure, and other financial advantages. We understand that those will be there, but I was quite surprised to see this as the third option, to be honest. And so this is something that you feel that it is quite important, especially for millennials. Train employees so that they can work smarter. Then that is something also important. I don't have numbers on this. Probably there's like studies around this, but I think it's obvious, right? And for me, for example, working, I do a lot of training in Azure, and I do a lot of consulting in Azure. So I have the two views on this. And sometimes I see my customers in the consulting business taking ages to do certain things. And when we start to talk about why you guys take so much time doing this, etc., because I never like to point fingers at first, to be honest, because it might be a process, an internal process or something. But why do you take ages to do these tasks? And then it's just because, there's one person that just doesn't know how to do this in a different way. So that person does things like it used to do on-prem. And I work a lot with Azure, so cloud computing. And they just do the same thing. It's just not the same thing. You have to get trained on this. Because look, if you just get here and there and there, you can just do in a fraction of the time. And this is sometimes when I'm doing consulting where I can get some training gigs, because then they ask me, oh, can you train us? Because I'm sure there's a lot of other things that we're doing wrong. I'm sure, yeah, sure, no problem with that. And we do this, and the customer feels that, oh, yeah, now we understand way better the product, and now we can be so much more performant. Things that take sometimes 2-3 days for them to do, we can automate those with some effort, sure, but the customer can do it, and now it takes 2-3 hours. Just this is a real example, by the way. So reducing the time, to perform the tasks. This also creates a more engaging team. Someone learns something, wants to share with their teams. This is something that I always have on my teams, is that there's every week we always have someone from the team presenting to the other members of the team something that he learned in the past 3 or 4 weeks. That he feels it's nice to just to present. And it's very short, very short sessions, sometimes 15-20 minutes, like this one. So I don't want to spend an hour or 2 hours on explaining a very complicated thing. No, it's just small things that will also benefit our colleagues and myself. So that's kind of the idea. So this starts engaging. So this peer-to-peer engaging, and this is something that I know I started to do this in consulting. Then I thought, this is cool to do in training too. And so I bring this to my trainings, and when I'm doing ILT or virtual ILT, I basically bring this to the table. I just ask, hey, look, student X, so what do you feel that you learned yesterday that was pretty awesome for you? And then he starts, if you want to start to explain, and I give them screen sharing permissions, and they share, and they basically explain something. So I'll try to, through all the class, to find some of my students that they can also present something. And they like that, and engage, and creates the spirit of the community that I like to have that. Also, one of the things is the last bullet point that we have here: less time, less effort, less money in fixing mistakes. You can't even imagine the amount of money that in IT we spend in fixing things because someone was not trained, he didn't knew how to do it, so he kind of took a shortcut, or didn't implement something because he didn't knew he was not even aware that thing needed to be done, etc. That we're talking about thousands, millions in some companies that are spent in things like this. And look, one of my customers was hacked a couple of weeks ago, and just because they didn't have cybersecurity awareness for the end users, and one of the end user clicked on something that shouldn't click, and they got some files encrypted and stuff. It was not so serious because they had backups, they had systems to detect that, etc. But still, that happened. That happened because of lack of training. Period. Okay. And of course now they are doing some sessions on cybersecurity and all of that, but just too late. Effective training equals to what? Equals to an increase in the productivity. So this is something that I'm very passionate about, as I think you already noticed. And One of the things that I see here is that the training need to be tailored so that we are going to deliver a training that matters for that team. It matters for that company, not only for the employee, but also for the company as an overall, because sometimes the employee only has a partial view of the vision and the goals of the company. And sometimes they don't know everything. And so, yeah, so we need to match those two, because the student, the employee, needs to be engaging. And even if we want to teach some other stuff, we also need to teach something that he appreciates. So it's kind of a mix. It's kind of creating the balance here, which is not easy. I'm not saying that I have, like, a one that I just do this and it magically happens, but it is not easy. But we can do this. Then working in technology, and more specifically working in cloud computing as I do, it's what I call an ever-changing technology. Sometimes it even changes during my classes. I'm using the Azure portal. I click on somewhere, and this now it's different to create a storage account. So and I'm surprised sometimes too. But look, we need to be aware of that. It's what it is. This will require what? This will require for your students, okay, for your partners, the end customer, those companies, they need to retrain their employees on a regular basis. It's not like, I got trained in Azure, I got a certification, and that's it. It's not. I have a customer that every year I go there and I teach some of the new services that came out since last year and some of the new features of existing services, so that they just get those that basically that delta, kind of an updating course. And we do this like every single year. And right now my customer is asking me, maybe we don't do that every year anymore. We need to do this every 6 months, because we're seeing that it's just too much time. So this is what's happening. If you don't want to do an ILT training, okay, I'm sure in other areas, well, sometimes some nuggets, like video nuggets, like just very short videos, like 5-6 minute videos, it can get you the update, right? Like, oh, there's like this now, and let's just do this in a video form. It's a great way to deliver that message and to train people. An e-learning course, well, you don't need, for sure, for all the cases, an instructor and ILT training for this. With this, let's do this. And this is something that a lot of people don't want to realize, but we need to do this question. Is ILT that? Okay? It's like, I don't believe it's totally that. This is by the way, it's my personal view, okay? It is definitely not that. Is it going to be the same in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Definitely not. And I'm sure I have a lot of my peers that they are not even aware about this, and they don't want to be aware of the changes that are coming. And we see providers like Microsoft, like AWS, Google, and a bunch of others launching, okay, innovations on that space. And I'm sure that my view on this is that what's going to be the future of training, or better yet, let's just remove the slide. Not the future of training, because it's not the future. It's what training is today, or it should be today. Because look, I don't want to say the future of training, but this is what I feel that I want to do today. This is what I'm working today. And by the way, I just came on holidays, and my next week is working on this, okay? And basically, what training should be today, okay? So let's go past the training models that we have. We need to retain information with repetition and accessibility. So we have the traditional learning solutions, right? ILT, has a huge carbon impact. This is important for companies today. It's important for me as a person, to be honest. It's something that I'm very passionate, and I'm not the greatest example of this, to be totally honest. On 2019, I did 165 flights, which probably like 25 of them were across the Atlantic. And I questioned myself, why? Some of them, okay, there's a reason. But loads of them, I questioned myself, why I went there? Why I went to my customer to do a meeting? This could be a Teams meeting. We don't need to be in person all the time. But I believe that there's still space for this, okay? But it's not easily repeatable. There's the logistics and the costs. Every time a customer sends me somewhere, they need to pay car drive from here to the airport, the flights, food, hotels, a room somewhere for me to deliver a training or for me to be working, all of that. If you talk about companies like Microsoft, for example, if you're talking about companies like AWS, etc., there's one thing that they want to control a lot, which is the quality of the deliveries. And it's really hard, aka impossible in my view, to control the quality of the deliveries. Not all the deliveries will be the same. You have amazing trainers out there that will give you an amazing experience, and then you have other trainers that are not so amazing. Let's be honest. This is what it is. So there is no consistency on the way that the message is transmitted. It's really hard to control this. Virtual ILT, well, we still have some of the concerns here, but it's more cost effective because there is no costs on transportation, rooms, etc. It's convenient. Everyone is working from home. You just connect. You can engage students if you use the right tools, like stuff like Mentimeter, so that we can give some questions and things like that. But it's really hard to control what the student is doing because, you know, I'm sure that when I'm training this time, some of my students are like on their phones answering a call, or, you know, they are doing other stuff, etc. For sure they're doing that. But so it's really hard. In the room, you control this. You can look at their emotions and their faces and all of that. So it works that way. It works better in room ILT, in person. Then we have e-learning. I don't want to onboard here a lot on e-learning. And you have video learning, which is gained a lot of popularity lately with some companies out there. I don't want to put names because I will always forget some of them, and then people will will tell me, "Oh, you didn't tell that company." But I'm sure you guys know who they are, and it's pretty good. Let's be honest. I love it because you can boost engagement. It's cheap. Okay, you can just give a license to your workers, to your employees, and they can just start working on this. But does those solutions work? I have to say none of them, in my opinion, works as the only solution. So for me, if we want to talk about a modern approach to skill development, is this. Let's put everything in a pile. Let's take what is best of each. And now, this is the important part. Let's get a platform that has all of it. Because if you just have one, it's really hard. And what you have is stuff like videos. Works pretty well. Text. Why not? Also bring some text. Micro labs, where people can just do a task and they can say, check work. And they say, oh yeah, you have done this successfully. Then having trainers to do ILT and live sessions. Having trainers helping them with the labs, because like, hey, Tiago, I am here. I can't do this task. Yeah, let's have some trainers on staff so that they can help people with actually doing the labs, because those questions will show up, okay? And so we want them to bring. So this is multimodal training. MMT, this is a name that I invented. Okay, like I said, I'm kind of working on this. I don't want to call something or whatever. I don't want to be the author of naming stuff like this for sure, but this is the name that I internally call this, because it's not one model. Okay, it's a mix, and having assessments, and in the end, people will be ready to perform a task, to perform a job. Okay, and that's kind of the idea. The idea is this: I want, everyone to work the way, because there's one thing that's important, and this is that message that I want to transpire with this picture, is that also not every student likes to learn in the same way. We have millennials that they have their very specific ways of learning, and then we have a bunch of other staffs, that baby boomers and others that are in the market, that they want to learn in a different way. And look, we are all different, and we have to onboard everyone, because in the end, we're all special, okay? And that's what matters. So this is basically my presentation. So thank you very much for having me.